Are we going to test the voice? Hi, welcome. This is Dr. Phyllis Edwards, or Dr. E, coming to you from episode 12 of The Widow Speaks. And this became something that just came to me. I hope and pray that it was, a Holy Spirit telling me that it was something that I needed to do. As I was going through a lot of things with my husband's passing. And I wanted to get the word out about what widows are going through. And I feel very strongly that they are an underrepresented group and that they have a lot of things going on. And they normally do it quietly. They normally do it in their home. And they normally are rather isolated. So we've had a lot of wonderful folks come on and really out of the goodness of their heart, experts that maybe you're not able to go out and seek an expert on something, but you might have questions, or I know you have questions because I had tons of them as I went through things. I appreciate all those people. I also want to thank Flagler Voice for actually, when I came in and talked to them about that I wanted to do this and why I wanted to do it, they were so gracious. They said they would do it as a public service. And so I'm hoping that their generosity and we get the word out, that there'll be more people that'll be interested in kind of stepping forth and sponsoring a podcast that you find, connects to you, your business, or just something that you would like to further. As I was going through a lot of the paperwork pieces, which God knows, I think the first time I talked about it, I said it's like having a cut and sliding down a razor blade into the alcohol, because every time you go to do something, you have to repeat again when your husband's name or your wife's name, whatever, your social security, date of birth, you answer the same questions 9,000 times, and you usually get the canned script of, "We're so sorry for your loss." Some people really are, and you can feel it, and you're so grateful. Other people, they need more training. Just going to be honest with you, it really, really hurts. But as an educator myself, I kind of put together a booklet just from my brain, from my heart, and it's called The Widow's Guide. I shared it with our guest, who knows so much about all of this, but it really had to do about the paperwork and your documents and, why it's so important to have a will and those kinds of things. But I'm the newbie here, so I'm going through all this stuff. I don't have the real details. But the gentleman that I'm going to introduce to you, Mr. Dale Dixon, attorney at law, is a phenomenal expert. He is gracious and kind, but he also deals with this kind of thing on a daily basis. So I am going to stop talking and introduce Dale to you and let him kind of give us a rundown of his background first. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. My practice, and I think your introduction is accurate, I daily deal with four main practice areas in my practice. That is estate planning, which is directly related to what you're talking about, probate administration cases, guardianship cases, and then long-term Medicaid care planning. So my practice, I have an office here in Palm Coast. I have an office in Jacksonville. So I practice throughout Northeast Florida.
Right.
My cases go from Nassau County on the Georgia border,
Right.
Clay County, Duval County, down into Orange County. I'm going to see a client tomorrow morning in Orange City. I had to Google that this morning and see what kind of drive do I have tomorrow morning to go see
45
this.
minutes. My daughter works over there.
So I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
I'm going to a nursing home tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Nursing home.
to see a individual who's the subject of a new guardianship case. But I've been practicing in those counties I was admitted to the Florida bar in 2008. Before that, I was admitted to the Maine bar. So I've been practicing for approaching 22 years.
Wow.
And I did some civil litigation initially, and then I narrowed my practice to the estate planning, the probate, and the guardianship. So I don't deal with the family law case. I don't deal with the creditor debt case. I don't deal with the personal injury case. And when someone that gets presented with your situation, which routinely happens all the time, they lose a spouse, oftentimes what I talk to clients about when they first come in is you need to breathe, you need to get the situation under control, and you have time. You don't have to panic. And I understand they're in a mourning process. There's a great deal going on, and it's extraordinarily emotional.
Yes.
And I recognize that because I've had emotional encounters with clients. I've had emotional encounters with families. They come in and everybody's extremely upset.
All right.
But the process is what I try to do is convey compassion and empathy for the individual and help them navigate it and get it under control. So I give you that biographical information to say when someone finds themselves having just lost a spouse, when they give consideration to seeking a lawyer, my recommendation is to find someone who practices in a narrow niche and they're doing the estate planning, they're doing the elder law type things.
I was going to say, so that would be under the umbrella of elder law.
That's a common label. Not a lot of lawyers adopt that. And there are some lawyers that do just the estate planning side. There are some lawyers that do just the probate administration side. There are some lawyers that do just the guardianship. They're all entangled considerations.
Yes, they are. It's like a Venn diagram.
Exactly. And then there's the Medicaid and long-term care planning piece of my practice as well, which in certain situations is
It's a big deal.
a big consideration because it deals with dollars and cents.
So where did you go to school? Back it up.
Back it up. My undergraduate degree was from Unity College, which is a small liberal arts school in the middle of Maine. My undergraduate degree is in biology. I stumbled into law school. It was
Interesting.
not a direct trajectory into law school. So my undergrad is in biology. After I got my undergrad, I worked for a couple of years doing biological research.
Okay.
So instead of studying history and law, I was doing biological research on puffins, Aplomado falcons, different species of hawks throughout the country. And after 2 or 3 years of that, I was dealing with, do I go and pursue a PhD in biology, ecology, or do I do something different? I stumbled into the notion of law school and made the decision to go to law school because it was a 3-year commitment as compared to a PhD that was a 5 or 6 year commitment and or longer, and then dealing with the funding issues associated with it.
Logical thought process and decision making.
There was logic employed there. However, I wasn't prepared for the results of the logic that I employ.
So you mentioned something I came to you about, which was I was concerned because I could see that my husband was fading. And even though I was his caregiver, you know, I realized pretty quickly that as he was getting worse, that I might be faced with a situation where he might have to go somewhere, go into a facility. We had a very good conversation that day. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because my concern was, you know, I know a lot of the places, I'm sure they're very good, but they can be up to $10,000 a month, or some are maybe even higher. I don't know. Of course, I would want him to be, as all of us would, in the best caring place. I physically, you know, I'm about to be 75, so I physically didn't think I could, you know, manage if because he was starting to lose his balance and stuff. And I asked you, what can you do? And I was really shocked at the amount of information you were able to give me that I had no clue about. And here I had been working all my life and putting away money and doing this and doing that. Doesn't matter. You've amassed all this things that you're supposed to, but you're not allowed to have them. Can you just talk briefly a little bit about that before we get into the wills and the documents and all that?
So briefly, what you're referring to is what I call long-term care planning in part of my Medicaid practice. That could take a couple hours to get through, frankly, because there's so many considerations. But there are two main governmental programs. So if you have a spouse who is infirm and you're not able to maintain them at home safely, and they need to either move into an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing care facility, there are governmental programs available that if you are financially eligible and medically eligible, you can get governmental assistance. But you're right. Those programs are designed for people who are indigent. So, for instance, if your spouse has had a stroke, they've had a catastrophic fall, and they're coming out of rehab, and you can't maintain them at home, and they go to a skilled nursing facility,
Right.
the average cost of care for a nursing home in the state of Florida, published by the state of Florida Department of Children and Families and the Agency for Healthcare Administration, is $10,450 a month. And in my experience, that is on the low side.
Wow.
Most of my clients are seeing monthly invoices of $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 for what you would deem is a mid-tier acceptable care facility that you're willing to let your family member be at, but you're not necessarily overjoyed that they're
Right.
there.
Exactly.
The specific Medicaid program for that is called the Institutional Care Program. It's an entitlement program. So if you meet the medical eligibility, which is your spouse needs a skilled nursing level of care, that's one part of a three-pronged test. Their income cannot exceed $2,982 a month, which if it does, there is a mechanism to work around that. That is a permissible strategy, but $2,982 is not significant income for a lot of our retirees here in North Florida. And then the asset test is the barrier where it stumbles people. For a married couple, they cannot have more than $3,000 in assets. Now, there are exempt assets that apply to that. Their homestead is an exempt asset.
One house, one car.
One car is an exempt asset. Now, the house is becoming complicated because there is an equity cap that is applied to the house. Your equity in your homestead cannot exceed $730,000. And with the increase in value of homes, there are a lot of people that are approaching
making that.
excess over that equity cap. That can be a barrier to eligibility. One car, as you said, but if they have a bank account with $20,000, $50,000, or $500,000 from 50 years of accumulated work,
Right.
there are a lot of barriers to eligibility. And at $10,500 a month, that is a really high burn rate.
That's going to go very fast.
Absolutely.
That's what hit me. And then the other thing that you said to me at the time, I had a life insurance policy when I was a superintendent to cover me because I was making quite a bit of money. I'd have to get rid of that.
Right. Life insurance policies are counted as an available asset. So the Department of Children and Families and the Agency for Healthcare Administration, which are the agencies that administer the program, they view if you have a whole life policy that you've banked for 30 years and it has $100,000 in cash value, their position and under the rules says that's an available resource that you have to exhaust before you can become eligible for this program. And there are strategies that we can employ to get you closer to eligibility, but it costs money and it basically tears down everything you've constructed over 50 or 60
You
years.
really,
of
if
labor.
you had savings, you got to get rid of those savings and put them into something else like real estate or whatever. I mean, I was shocked. And then some of the things were interesting about if you are the caregiver, then there can have like columns. So if my husband made X, Y, or Z in retirement from different pensions, some of that, as I remember you saying, could be moved over into my column, if you will. But it still was, the thing that really blew it for me was the life insurance policy, because that was supposed to be for long-term care if I needed it. So you exhaust all that for your person, of course, you'll do whatever you have to do. I didn't have to make that decision, but I had to find out about it ahead of time. And I mean, that's why we're doing this stuff, so that people will think about the fact that these are all things that as you were growing up, you were taught to work hard, you were taught to save money, put money in IRA, whatever, 401k, B, whatever. And you did all that. And, you know, you had your house and you got and then you find that all of it could be wiped out very, very quickly. And A lot of people are the caregivers before their husband or wife passes.
Oh, absolutely. And it's
Right.
exhausting for them, right?
It is.
It's overwhelming.
It's really hard.
There are long-term care policies that some people get through employment opportunities, but generally I don't see a lot of long-term care insurance. And those still have daily cap rates that don't necessarily cover the whole cost of care. These facilities are charging $250, $350, $450 a day for this cost of care, which is extraordinary.
And people are living longer. God bless, right? But that's a problem. So anyway, thank you for going over that. So one of the things that I'm really like wanting people to hear is, please, documents, wills, you got to get your stuff in order, because once things hit, your brain pretty much goes to mush. You're crying all the time. You could have files in front of you and your stuff's in there, but you can't find it. That kind of thing. So
before you move on, let me say
ahead.
one additional thing with respect to the long-term care, and you're talking about documents. For individuals who are in their 50s and 60s and they've accumulated some assets, there is some proactive planning that can be done.
Okay.
Because the Medicaid programs, if you don't have long-term care insurance, if you have some accumulated assets and you have some assets that you aren't necessarily going to exhaust in your older years, and you want to have that transfer to the next generation and your beneficiaries, you can do irrevocable trusts where you fund money into an irrevocable trust. And as long as it's done 5 years before you apply for Medicaid, which is a federal legislative look-back period, you can carve out some of your estate and preserve it for future generations if you do that type of proactive planning. So that's an important thing for people to be aware of.
Exactly. So when you're doing your wills and you're thinking about this kind of stuff, you need to think about that, because when I came to you, it was too late. Because anything we would have done, they would have done a backup of 5 years.
Correct.
So you almost have a forensic review 5 years back. Well, I was already there and I didn't know about it. So that's good to mention. So what kind of document wills, what do you see in your practice that people mostly come to you for?
On the planning side, there are two basic approaches when you want to deal with your estate. It is either you do a simple will plan where you do a last will and testament that says, upon my passing, here's how I want my assets to be distributed. And who's going to be responsible for that job, which is the personal representative.
Right.
Other states, we know the term of art is executor. Here in Florida, the statute uses personal representative. So generally, when someone comes in, I give them the choice of, you can do a simple will that says who gets your assets. You want to do, in my mind, a durable power of attorney, and there are reasons for doing that. You want to do a designation of a healthcare surrogate, and you want to execute a living will. And those are four basic documents in a will planning strategy. The other option is to do a revocable living trust. And many people are familiar with a revocable living trust and the concept that it avoids probate if it's properly crafted and funded. And then in addition to the trust, when you do a revocable living trust, you also do a will, and you also do a durable power of attorney, and you also do the healthcare surrogate, and you do the living will. For a lot of clients I see, for middle America, a simple will plan and thoughtful planning with respect to their other assets is a perfectly acceptable way to go. They don't need to pay a long dollar to an attorney for a revocable living trust plan that is overbuilt for what they need to do. And I also talk to clients about, on all of your assets, there's an opportunity to put beneficiaries on them. And if you do a will, and if you follow my counsel and do these beneficiary designations, your will never see the inside of a courthouse. You
don't want.
You're right. Well,
I mean,
you don't. Ideally, you don't, in that it's going to cost legal fees to do
time.
it. It's going to cost time, and it's going to cost your beneficiaries the grief and misery of dealing with the probate process. However, the public notion that probate is a undue, horrible experience is not necessarily accurate in my experience. It's doable. It's manageable. I know that you're hearing that from a probate lawyer, but it's not a terrible thing. It can be done. It can be done reasonably easily.
But for my concern, sometimes I have two daughters that are in their 40s. They have assets. They have houses. They have cars. They have bank accounts, whatever. You know, what could you say to them? Nobody under 40, whatever, thinks anything's ever going to happen to them. I really feel strongly that you got to get your stuff in order, or, everything's going to be going to whomever the state, what they're not married, that kind of thing.
I think my argument to a 40-year-old would be, if you don't specify where your assets are going and in what proportions, the state does that for you. And there is a Florida statute that's intestate succession that says who gets your assets. This court appoints who the personal representative of the estate is, so you don't have any discretion over who that person is. And you give rise to uncertainty for your beneficiaries, particularly in scenarios where you have someone who's married, someone who has minor children, someone who's in a second marriage. A lot of the cases I handle are blended families. So you have second spouse,
right,
minor children or adult children, and there are specific rules in Florida statutes that say who can receive your home. Can you devise your home away from your spouse? Florida says no. Your spouse cannot be deprived of a homestead if you own it with them jointly at your death, even though it may not be your intent to convey it to them. So if you're not aware of that fact, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And if you have minor children, the homestead can't be conveyed away. So there are a lot of considerations where if you don't go sit down and learn those facts, what you desire or what you would prefer may not happen and may have unintended results.
Some of those other things you mentioned, unless you have been one of the ones that's been in the hospital, when they ask you, do you have blah, 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 people don't know what those are. Can you just briefly explain those again?
So those are the supporting documents in addition to the will of the trust.
Yeah.
So in an estate planning world, you're thinking about, here are my assets, who's going to receive them when I pass. The additional documents, the durable power of attorney, the health care surrogate. Do not resuscitate is an instrument done at the hospital, not by the lawyer in advance, but that's a consideration.
Good.
The living will is a consideration. And those are important for when you're alive. So if you're 40 years old, you're driving down 95, which is taking your life into your own hands.
Exactly.
And you have a catastrophic event, and you don't die as a consequence of that, and you do not have a durable power of attorney in place. A durable power of attorney says, in the event I can't handle my affairs, I can't write a check, I can't pay my taxes, I can't pay my mortgage, I can't pay my Spectrum bill, I nominate this person to be my agent and step into my shoes and do those things for me. They take that document to the bank, they take it to the IRS, they take it to your homeowner's insurance, and they can handle your affairs for you.
Right.
The value of that is, if you don't do that and you don't have that instrument, the only way to get someone in position to do those things for you is to have a guardian appointed over you by the court system of the state of Florida.
Right.
That is expensive. That is slow. And you've not been able to participate in the process and say who you want your guardian to be.
Right.
So I do guardianship work. The fees associated with getting just a simple guardian appointed in an uncontested matter is going to be probably $5,000 to $8,000 just to get them appointed.
Wow.
And then it's a court supervised process for the rest of your life or until you regain capacity.
Wow.
So having that simple durable power of attorney saves your family significant assets, and it's a protection. Things can get done quicker and more efficiently. The same holds true for healthcare decisions. So the healthcare surrogate designation is an instrument that says, in the event I've had that catastrophic event and I can't make my healthcare decisions, I nominate this person to do that for me.
And that is very, very important. I mean, you have wishes. You know already what you would want to do or don't want to do, or that kind of. They have to be communicated.
Right, and that's part of the healthcare surrogate process. Is you have the document in front of you. You go to your agent and you have those conversations. What kind of procedures would you want? What kind of procedures would you not want?
Right.
What kind of care would you want to receive? Where would you want it? Where would you not want it? And if you don't have that conversation with your proposed agent, you don't have the document in place, it's that court-appointed agent
Right.
who could be a family member.
Mm-hmm.
They may know your wishes, but they may not. And then I have cases where there's a dispute. It's son arguing against sister over who should be mom's guardian.
Mm-hmm.
They may not have any idea what mom wanted for level of care. They may not have any idea what mom didn't want for care, but they think they want to be the guardian. And then she's going to be subject to what decisions they make.
And I was going to ask you about the family issues, because I think one time I came to see you and you were like getting ready to go to a mediation or something with family.
Yes.
It's not that odd, is it?
Actually, it's
Very common.
more routine. We see the conflicts between brother and sister, sister and sister, second spouse, and children from prior relationship. Those are all common scenarios where there's a dispute over who ought to be the guardian. There are contests over who should be the personal representative of the estate if you don't have it designated in a will. And I routinely, when I'm sitting with clients and we're talking about estate planning, we're talking about long-term care, I often hear, well, I don't know if I need to do a power of attorney, or I don't know if I need to put this person on as a beneficiary of this account because I think they know what I want and I think they'll do the right thing.
Uh-oh.
And I say to them, I respect what you're saying. I don't know the person you're referring to, and I'm not passing judgment on their character. However, in my experience, if it's not on paper and properly executed in a legal document, more often than not, I see
Chaos.
I see the person who you thought was going to act and do the right thing and distribute half to their brother and keep the other half for themselves. They do not.
Doesn't happen.
Right. And one of the biggest mistakes I see and that people don't understand just in the simple estate planning concept is elderly widow or widower. They have multiple children and they put one child on their checking account and their savings account for convenience to help them out. And what they've done by doing that is they've conveyed title and or ownership to that one child. And then they tell me, well, I know
I didn't mean it.
they'll do the right thing. So when I pass, they'll be sure to give the other shares to their siblings. And that's when I have that conversation is I wouldn't be so confident in that.
Yeah, it is sad to hear the things that happen. And, you don't even know, like, you might be in the situation and you're the wife, right? And you know what your husband wants. But when they come to you and say, but you got to do the thing in the neck, the port, because now we have to do dialysis or he has no chance of living. I know my husband may not have wanted that, but you're also in a state of chaos and you want to save their lives. So even that person is going to do stuff that, later on they're thinking, I shouldn't have done that. But what are your choices? And I would just say for anybody, this is such good conversation. And I caution everybody to please take it seriously, because you're going to have enough confusion, chaos, and sadness that this is not something that you necessarily want to start dealing with at that time.
Yeah. And I think what I would emphasize to people is, as the person who's receiving the medical care or they're in that decline, if you have the opportunity to express what you would want or what you don't want, and you take the burden off your family members,
All right.
that is a big relief to them.
Yeah.
And you've maintained your autonomy to say what you want or what you don't want.
Yeah. You have choices. Well, I want to thank you for coming and sharing your time. And again, so kind of you. And I appreciate it. And I hope people will pay attention. And for everybody out there, I just want to say, remember, you're not alone. You're going through your own journey. I'm going through mine. Mine's different than yours, but we have a lot of commonalities. I think the biggest thing, again, you're not alone. And I hope that you'll go back and watch the sessions, the episodes, because we've covered a lot of different things, from medical to psychological to spiritual, and there's more to come. And we're so grateful for our guest today. And I want to end, as I always do, with please try to remember that there's beauty for ashes and that God is with the brokenhearted. And God bless you.